Yeah, so I'm Dan Wester. I'm from Wittified. And I'm going to talk about how we actually use add-ons to build other add-ons at Wittified. It's very, very meta. But real quick about me before I get started. There we go. I think, did that do it? Yeah, there we go. OK. So like I said, I'm from Wittified. I'm one of the co-founders of Wittified. We have about 16, 17 add-ons on the marketplace today. And that list is continually being added to. Now, we're a small company. So finding a time to focus on innovation, focusing on fixing technical debt that is not directly customer-facing, has been a challenge. One of the ways we figured out how to do this, though, is by using 20% project time. The reason we do 20% project time is that it allows us to have a slot of time that we just do this stuff. And we do this on Fridays. Every Friday is our innovation time. This allows us to look back at the previous week and any cool APIs, new design patterns, or any issues that we've had internally. We can do that then. So one of the products that have come out of this is Web Fragment Finder. Show of hands, how many of you have heard of Web Fragment Finder? OK, a couple. Hopefully, by the end of this, there'll be a lot more. So Web Fragment Finder came about because of a very, very simple use case. I have a web page, and I want to add a web item. And I want to add the web item right up here. Well, if I'm using Atlassian Stash, it's really simple. I just add web.items to the query string. Everything shows up. For all of the other products, though, I have to head into the documentation. I'll find the stuff. Or I'll start searching in the source code. Each one of those is context switching. I don't like context switching. So we created Web Fragment Finder. Now, over time, though, Web Fragment Finder has evolved, and it has evolved a lot. So today, I'm going to show you Web Fragment Finder 2.0. And I'm going to start off with a P2 add-on and how you can use it there. So I've already written this add-on for the most part. I've created the basic descriptor, active objects, entities, a service, the REST, and event listener, and all that stuff, CSS, JavaScript. What's left is to glue it all together. This add-on will track dashboard views in Jira. So the very first thing we want to do is figure out when a user views a dashboard. And the way we can do this is, obviously, we can go with server filters and have fun with regexp. But don't know about you, but regexp is not really that much fun. So we can also take a look at events. I just happen to know that there is an event in Jira whenever you view a dashboard. But how to find it? Again, documentation will help. But we've actually built into Web Fragment Finder what we call inspectors. So we have an event inspector. The event inspector allows me to see all of the events that have been triggered ever since we installed Web Fragment Finder. In this case, there's a dashboard view event. And I can see the event class and all the parameters that were sent in on that event and when the event was triggered. So I can just take this class and stick it into my Java code. Didn't have to go to documentation. All right, so we got data coming in. Let's make sure we can get the data out. So we're going to use the SDK's REST API browser. And we'll just go and find the call in here and go ahead and execute it. And obviously, it wouldn't be a demo if I didn't do this. It broke. So what's going on? We can go real quick, go take a look at the logs. And we see column not found, dashboards. Well, that's odd. I know there's a column there, or at least I think so. So at this point, when we built this, we had the choice of spinning up a Postgres database or something like that and switch over to it, or start debugging. We easily kill a couple of hours. So we added another inspector called the Active Objects Inspector. The Active Objects Inspector allows me to see all P2 add-ons that uses active objects. And I can drill down into the particular entity. And I can see the Java configuration, but I can also see the table data and the configuration of each column. So in this case, I can see that there was a dashboard, not the dashboards. So I can go over to my Java code and just change that. So we'll go back and do recompile and upload and all that stuff and hit the database. We can make sure stuff goes in. And then we can go back into the active objects, do the same thing again. But this time, we'll get data. So you can actually see all of the data in the active objects. So like I mentioned at the beginning, adding web items is pretty much what Web Fragment Finder started with. And we've done the back end. Let's do the front end. And the very first thing we should do is add a web item. So adding a web item, or seeing all the web item locations, really simple. I just say, always show web items, and hit save. And at that point, we'll start seeing red add web item links being scattered across. Now, I'm going to add this link to the dashboard page. So we'll go over to the main dashboard page, and then click on the add web item next to the tools. Now, something was copied to the clipboard. That something was an XML fragment. So I can just take this XML fragment, update it to my stuff, put it in the descriptor, save, compile, and I'm done. All right, so we got a button. I mentioned already I've written the CSS in JavaScript. But there's a problem. If I take a look at my web resource context here, it's ATL general. ATL general in a web resource context is an entire site, usually. And that means that I'm actually going to load my CSS and JavaScript on every page. In this case, I only care about the dashboard. So what we did in Web Fragment Finder, you have a way of seeing all of the web resource contexts that were used to build that page. I can just say, always show web resource context, hit save, and you'll see these yellow bars at the top of the page. And we'll go over to the dashboard page, because that's where we want to add stuff. And now you'll see on the top a list of the bars. And this will show me the contexts and which plugins are using it. So in this case, there's an ATL dashboard. So we'll just use that for now. So with all of this, I debugged without going to any documentation. I fixed things without going to documentation. It's really cool. So in the end, what I end up is a button that I can click on, and I can see the dashboard views. So for Web Fragment Finder for P2, we have some functionality. But right about now, I have somebody from Atlassian in the very back of the room sitting there going, that's great, but that's P2. But what about Atlassian Connect? Atlassian Connect is the new awesome sauce. Everybody should be doing Atlassian Connect. And we've been doing stuff with Atlassian Connect. We launched Bitbucket stuff, so customized for Bitbucket is out there. And as we've been doing this, we've adapted Web Fragment Finder to help us. So the very first thing that we did is work on how we install Atlassian Connect. For those that are not familiar with it, this is one of the commands that you can use to start up Jira with Atlassian Connect. This is awesome. It's documented. It's great. It changes every couple of weeks. So what we do, we start it up this way. Just Atlas run standalone, product Jira. Now you might say, but that doesn't actually install Atlassian Connect. You're right. We installed Web Fragment Finder. The reason we installed Web Fragment Finder, we get this area. From here, I can just click on a button. Web Fragment Finder goes out, gets the correct version of Atlassian Connect, downloads it, caches it, uploads it to Jira, and flips on Atlassian Connect. I don't have to deal with that blob anymore. We reload the page, and we're in Atlassian Connect mode. We can also here, though, flip over to development version. So you'll see Atlassian Connect comes in two flavors. There's the development version, which is the latest and greatest, not in production yet, but about to. I can switch over to that, and at the very top of the page, I'll now get alerted that my Atlassian Connect library is not the same that's in development, or in production if I was watching production, as well as that my Jira version is out of date. For the library, I can just mash the button and it will install the updated version from there. Obviously, with the application itself, that's a different story. We're still working on that one. But for now, I'm just going to switch back to the production version. And you'll notice that we just get alerted about the Jira version being out of date. So that's installing. So great, we got Atlassian Connect there. Web items. Well, web items works the same way as we did in P2. Just say always show, click on the link, and something is copied to clipboard. In Atlassian Connect, it's a JSON blob. I can stick that into my descriptor. I'm off to the races. So the other fun thing, though, is when you start working with P2 add-ons. Jira Agile, Jira Service Desk, even our own. Say we want to port a P2 add-on to Atlassian Connect. We might want to have those two running next to each other for a bit, the Atlassian Connect and the P2, to get feature parity. Right now, you would have to bring up Atlassian Connect, the Jira instance or Confluence instance, in Atlassian Connect. Once it's up and has the libraries installed, shut it down, bring it back up without the stuff, install the P2, and then repeat. That's 10 minutes, easily. Same button. I can click on it. I'm now out of Atlassian Connect. I'm back in P2 world. And I can now go over to the add-on manager. I can go and find my P2 add-on and just install it. So right now, it's going to download the P2 plugin. Once I've gotten that up and running, I can just go back to my configuration page and click Install it now. Second time, the libraries are cached, so it's a lot faster to install it again. But after that, I have P2 and Atlassian Connect running next to each other. All right, so that's working with other stuff. But what about actually Atlassian Connect? Well, Atlassian Connect descriptors are really configuration files. I don't know about you. I don't like configuration files. So what I have here is a basic Atlassian Connect Express app. It's a Node.js app. I can just take this directory path and copy it, then go over to the configuration screen and paste that path in. Add on /Atlassian Connect to JSON on it, hit save, and we're now going to be entering into managed app mode. And because it's an Atlassian Connect Express app and it's a node, Web Fragment Finder identifies that and starts it up. I don't have to go to command line. So now we have an ASAP up and running. To prove that, we'll reload the page. We see the hello world at the top. We can go and click on it. A dialog comes up. I'll come back to that in a sec. But we go to it, and there's the Atlassian Connect Express hello world page. To further prove that it's up and running, one of the biggest challenges we've had is troubleshooting Atlassian Connect. Atlassian Connect is all about HTTP. So to troubleshoot it, you can use Wireshark, ngrok, and all that stuff. Every once in a while, those don't work so well. And you might spend a couple of hours troubleshooting it. After that happened a couple of times to us, we created an HTTP inspector. The HTTP inspector allows me to see all inbound and outbound HTTP requests. I can see the request headers, the response headers, and the request body for outgoing. And for incoming, right now, only the response headers. But we were working on that. All right, so we got Atlassian Connect up and running. Let's actually do something here. Let's add a web panel without touching code. We'll just go and add web.panels on the query string, just like Stash. And we get to see all of the web panel locations. And I can just click on one of them, and I get a wizard. I've already created this URL in my Node app that's up and running. So I'll just fill out everything else. Give it that URL, give it the location and all that, the label, the height and width, and hit save. At this moment in time, Web Fragment Finder is updating the descriptor. I don't have to touch it. And because it's Node, it's also restarting the Node app. I can just reload the page. And after a bit, we'll see the web panel. And I can reload it again, and we'll have the web panel update that viewed one time. What's really cool about that web panel is that it's using issue properties. So those that are not familiar with issue properties, that's properties saved on the issue object, also available in P2. Issue properties and its friends are really awesome. They're really cool. They have a problem, though. The way to troubleshoot them is to use the REST API. Again, context switching. I don't want to know the REST API every day. I just want to have it work. So we created something called the property inspector. The property inspector allows me just to type in the issue key, in the case of issue properties, and I can see all the properties attached to it. I can see the values, and I can edit it. So in this case, let's say 3 million people view this page. And then we'll go back to the issue page, and our web panel will be updated. 3,000,001. Okay, so that's issue properties and web panels. What about web items? Well, we can do the same thing. We can just add !web items to the URL, and we get our friends, their red links, showing up. If I'm good. Hopefully. And we can just click on one of them where we want to add our web item. In this case, though, we get a dialog, though, when we do this. And we get the wizard. We can say we want a web item here. In this case, I'm going to do an inline dialog. I'm going to also reuse the same URL I did previously, just to make things life easier. And we'll pick inline dialog and hit save. The page will get reloaded, and we'll reload it, and that kind of stuff. And we'll see our dialog, our web item show up under More. And we can click on it, where it's an inline dialog. All right, so that didn't really look that great. Inline dialog's there, and the drop-downs don't mix. So let's change that to a dialog. we do the same thing. We just go up to the query string and add web.items to it. Page gets reloaded, and we get our friends the red add web items again. This time, though, we click on it, and it hit edit. We get all the data. And we can just change over the dialog, give a height and a width. I don't have to go to the documentation to remember what the dialog items are. And I hit save. It gets reloaded. And we should get our friend counter back. But this time, it will generate a dialog. Now, this is awesome for rapid prototyping. So we already had a bunch of functionality for P2. And we have a lot more for Atlassian Connect. Now, you might wonder, how does all of this work? Well, it's pretty simple, or at least I think so. For the web items and all that stuff, we actually query the plugin system. We say, hey, what is everybody else using? And that's how we gather up where the web items are, web section, web panels, and all that stuff, and web resources. Then we just generate a new jar, put everything over, copy class files over, so we're dynamically generating a plugin. And then we upload it into the plugin system. For the events, well, the Atlassian event system is really cool. It uses a reflection. So we can use a reflection. If you register the base Java object, my advice, don't do this in a commercial plugin. You get all the events, all of the events. So we can just take that and then use Java reflection on top of that, and we categorize things, and that's how we capture the data. For the capturing of the outbound HP, we actually install an HP proxy in Web Fragment Finder. And then we dynamically reconfigure Jira on the fly. For getting the notification of things, there's actually a JSON file out there. It's documented on connect.atlassian.com, and it contains the startup commands. This is awesome if you're doing any type of automation around Connect to use this file. So we just take that file and we parse it out and we identify things that way. Almost no magic. So Web Fragment Finder today is on the marketplace, and it's pretty much available for all of the apps. Sorry, crowd. Not for you. So before I leave, I do want to encourage you guys to go through the various resources we have. Developer.atlassian.com, Maven, docs.atlassian.com, design.atlassian.com, and those. I have a personal challenge for myself to go through these once a week. And I need to find one thing to use the next week. It can be fun. So the last 25 minutes or so, you've pretty much been listening to me talk about Web Fragment Finder, a tool that we built to help us, and it works great for us. And we want to share it with the community. Hopefully it will help you. But if you have any similar tools that you're using to help you, share it with the community. Share it with the ecosystem. It helps us all. And finally, use it, Web Fragment Finder. I think it's awesome, but I'm slightly biased. Thanks.